All right, Jenna, thank you so much for finally being on the podcast. I've been bugging you for a year to do this.
Happy to be here.
All right, awesome. So over the past 5 years, I've had the pleasure of watching you wreck the world. So I know this is probably pretty awkward for you, but what are the goals that you have achieved over the past 5 years?
Yeah, so over the past 5 years, I've actually had some pretty life-changing goals accomplished. And of course, the most important is my family. So within the last 5 years, I've had another child, so my second. I was able to get a position at a community college as a professor, which was one of my bucket life dreams. And then I was also able to get a TEDx booking, so I was able to give that TED Talk. And then my newest goal that I'm reaching currently is that I'm launching my own performance coaching business.
Awesome. I think there's one that you forgot, though.
Well,
there's two. One, obviously, meeting me.
Yes.
And the other, were you the number one employee in your entire company?
Yes.
For that?
Yes.
How do you just forget that?
I mean, that was like nothing. No, just kidding.
How many people worked at your company at the time that you got that accomplished?
Probably about 3,000.
Awesome. Well done. So basically, kick butt and take names, or sometimes you're kicking too much butt, you forget to take names. So what do you think are the reasons that you have been able to do that? I'm sure our audience, they all have these dreams and these goals that they're looking at, and what do you think helped you to be successful or achieve?
That's really something that I've been thinking about a lot recently because, it's funny as knowing you, Tasha, for the last 5 years, I just kind of do these things and they seem normal to me because that's like Jenna mode, right? Like people say oh, she's going in Jenna mode. She's going off on another tangent. And, to me, that's just who I am and that's kind of my life. And so, knowing you ask me these things and you point things out all the time to say hey, this is not normal. And so I've spent a lot of time in the last couple months really trying to unpack what it is that is Jenna mode. How am I getting these things done? Because on top of really accomplishing these major goals, I also have a full life, commuting 3 hours a day. I work 40 hours a week. I raise my 2 children. I deal with anxiety and OCD. So life is pretty crazy, yet I'm still able to do these things. And so I've really been taking the time to say what the heck am I doing? And how is it that this works? And I think the really coolest realization that I've come to is that the skills that I learned in rowing are really what have shaped the way that I perform the things that I want to accomplish and just really my life in general. So, about 15 years ago now, I started on the rowing team. So those are the long Olympic boats that you'll see, in the Olympics, and I'm the coxswain. And so I'm the person that really, is the coach on the water. I steer, I give commands, I let them know where we are. And, I kind of just realized that I learned that there's a formula to really getting rowers to succeed in that situation. And so I've been able to take that and really apply that to my life. Same exact thing. And so I've kind of just noticed I'm just replicating that. And so I think that's really how I've been successful in those goals.
So what's the formula?
So the formula is, where are you? Where do you want to be? What are the steps to get there? Do those steps and then really reassess to say, hey, did I accomplish that or not? So in a rowing context, as the coxswain, as we're in the middle of a race, I'll look over and say to my team, hey, this is where we are against the other boat. I want you to move the boat this far in 10 strokes. And then I tell them very specifically what those 10 strokes are going to be about. So for example, you're going to extra, push your legs in those 10 strokes. I then count those 10 strokes to say, it's on, we're doing it right now. After those 10 strokes, I look over and I tell them, okay, we were here, now we're here, you did it. What's next? And so I really kind of take that on, to say, so for example, I put out these crazy goals and, really ones that seem to be very far-fetched, but I think about, well, where are you now? What does life look like today? where do you want to be and what would life look like if you actually accomplish those goals? And that process alone has really got me the buy-in to be like, okay, no, this is something I need to do. I can't rationalize it away. Like, no, I want to do this. And so now I need to create a plan to get there and really identify the obstacles that are coming up. And most of the time they're imaginary, right? Like things that we just put out into the world because we're too afraid to do something. And so I make a very, very specific roadmap to accomplish that goal, and then I execute it. And so once I'm done with that goal, I kind of say like, hey, what does it feel like? What does life look like now? And every single time I'm like, damn, feels so good, you know, and it really just pumps me up and gives me the motivation that I need to take on the next goal.
It's funny that you mention like these crazy goals. I still remember you're like, I want to do a TED Talk. Yeah. And I was like, who is this person that says I want to do a TED Talk? Like and it wasn't this someday I'd like to, you were like, I'm going to do a TED Talk.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And then within a year of that conversation, you were doing a TED Talk.
Right.
So that, I mean, I think that's just for everyone that's listening, that this very simple process, right? Like success is not so complicated. I think it's just doing the basics really, really well with repetition, right? Towards teaching, toward work, toward your family, toward doing the TED Talk, toward your coaching business. But let's talk about that TED Talk for a second. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So this is what I've been, for the audience, this is what I've been chasing her down to come on the podcast about. And well, obviously she's been busy. So what was your TED Talk on?
So my TED Talk is around the concept of saying compliments out loud. So it's actually called Say It Out Loud. One of the things that I realized was that we often think things about people that are really complimentary, but for whatever reason, and there's a ton of reasons that I found out, we just don't tell people these things. And, you know, I just recognize that misses out on such an amazing opportunity to connect with people, to lift them up, and to really make an impact. And so for a year, I said, screw it. I don't care how awkward it is or how uncomfortable it is. If I think something nice about someone, whether they're a stranger or in my inner circle, I'm going to say it and see what happens. And so I did that. And really, it was a profound experience for that year. And so that's what I was able to share during my TED Talk, is kind of what that experience looked like and what sort of impact it had.
Would you be able to share a couple of stories about how, like what happened when you chose to say it out loud instead of just keeping it in?
Yeah. One of my favorite stories of all, and the lesson that I learned from it, was that something that seems insignificant to you may not be insignificant to someone else. So I was in the drive-through and I was getting my coffee from the lady, you know, at the window, and I noticed her nail polish, and I was thinking, all right, this is going to be lame. I'm going to tell her I like her nail polish, right? Super insignificant to me. But when I said it to her, she started to cry, and she was like, thank you so much for noticing that. This is the first time I've ever been able to get my nails professionally painted. You know, the job at McDonald's has allowed me to be able to afford it. And, you know, she just was so proud of the fact that she had her nails done. And it just made me think right then and there, like, man, I'm onto something. You know, I could have just easily driven past and been like, whatever, her nails, right? But to her, it was financial freedom and determination and a huge accomplishment that she was able to share with me because I recognized her for it. So that is probably my favorite one. I have one other that I would love to share. I actually was walking behind a friend, and actually I didn't really know her that well. She was the mother of one of my children's friends. And so I was following her into dropping off her children off. And I remember thinking, like, gosh, she's really in shape. She looks good, you know? And of course I'm thinking, okay, Jenna, let's not be super awkward. You know, she's going to be like, who's this lady chasing me down to tell me I look good? But I said, screw it. This is going to happen. Say it out loud. And so I ended up telling her, gosh, you look so amazing. You know, I'm sure that takes a lot of work and great job. And so the cool thing was that later on that day, we ended up becoming friends on Facebook. And it just so happened to be the same day she wrote this beautiful testimony about the journey she's been on with health and fitness. She shared a before and after picture where, she was, not at the weight that she wanted to be previously, but through all the work that she had put on or put herself through, she was able to demonstrate that, she was super fit now. So it just was such a good realization of the timing, right? Like, we don't know what's going on in other people's lives, and we won't unless we say something. And so, if I had said, "Oh, you look so good," in a response to her Facebook post, it just wouldn't have felt as sincere and genuine. And so, again, just another example that I thought to myself, like, this is amazing. And think about what the world would look like if we actually said our compliments out loud to people.
Yeah, and then there's the time that you created Emerge.
Yes, that is also... Yes, you all have me to thank for Tasha. That's true. So Tasha came into my cubicle. We worked together. And, I don't even remember how the conversation came up, but I remember
it was awkward, Jenna. So
yeah,
you just mentioned both times how it was, this is going to be awkward, so I'm going to say it anyway, even though it's awkward.
Yeah.
And then I walked by, I think I was like on my way back from the bathroom, because I'll never forget this moment. I don't know.
Me either. No.
Okay. So you remember it so I just walked by, and it was just like, for whatever reason, I stopped at your cube. And do you remember what you said to me?
I told you that you were made for more, and that you were settling, and that you had skills that were going to impact the world, and that you needed to stop playing around and go do them.
Yeah. How do you guys like that on your way back from to your office?
From the potty break.
And I definitely believe that was a catalyst to push forward. Because I was so safe and so comfortable. And I'm wondering, if you didn't say that to me, what would or would not have happened?
It's so cool. I think that's just such a good example. And I think, God, think about, I didn't say anything profound, right? I just looked at you and said the obvious truth. And I think we get so scared of saying what we think that we miss so many opportunities to impact people. And what a shame, right? Look at you and the people that you've impacted since that day. It's insane. So I'm so glad that I was bold enough to say it, right? I think that's the big thing. I think when you look at who Jenna is, number one, awkward always comes up, super awkward, because I say things all the time that people are like, okay, but they're raw, and they're honest, and they're bold. And I feel like that's one of the themes that have really been throughout every one of my goals that I've accomplished as well. It's just, yeah, it's super terrifying, but I'm going to do it anyways. And if I look stupid, oh well. Because I can look stupid if I don't do it, right? Or what I perceive as stupid. I'm sure you're going to yell at me for saying that. Or I can take a chance and then have my life be changed, right?
Yeah, so I was actually going to ask you why you think that people don't say it out loud. I'm thinking about our audience, right? So they're network marketers. A lot of time they're leaders, or they're selling to customers. So maybe let me take a step back. So for our audience, what do you think are the benefits for saying it out loud?
Unbelievable benefits. So, first of all, human connection, right? And I know specifically with sales of any type, right? It's about building relationships, maintaining them, engaging with people, and showing them who you are and building up trust in that person, so that when they say, hey, I've got this product that could change your life, they're going to believe you, right? And I think, certainly as well, when you're trying to connect with people that you don't already have an established relationship with, saying out loud is huge. I'm not joking when I say I will see people in the grocery store and I will say it out loud. I'm not joking. Like, I went up to someone and was like, I love your eyebrows. That is really awkward. But we're able to have a huge conversation about her eyebrows and how her mother has great eyebrows and she's super jealous and gosh, she wished she could do something, right? But like those times where I say things that might be super awkward have opened up an entire conversation with a complete stranger that I would have never had I not just said it out loud to that person. So specifically for your audience, if you think something nice about someone and you want to have a conversation with them anyways, why not lead with a compliment that's genuine?
Right. Or even without the outcome, what if we were just, I mean, so much, this podcast is the podcast for good humans, right?
Yeah.
So part of being a good human, I think if you're a good human in business, if you're a good human, you will also be successful in business.
Right.
And so if you are just that little gut, they're like, oh, wow, I want to say something, and you just go say it. That extra good humanness,
Yeah.
I think obviously has impacts because from just a prospecting perspective, because now you're making new friends. So many of our people were like, I don't know how to talk to people. And you don't know how to talk to people. You're admittedly very awkward. And so what you just lead with is, I just want to let you know this sincere compliment. And I know some of it might be superficial if it's obviously someone you don't know, but they made an effort for something, right?
Yeah. And, I think that's the beauty of it. It doesn't have to be superficial. I think that's one of the things that's kind of an easy go-to, but people can maybe feel a little bit uncomfortable about saying something about someone else's appearance, especially if it's like opposite sex or something like that. But there's so many opportunities. For example, I went to a nail salon and I saw a mother getting her nails done, and there were like 5 children of hers that were also getting their nails done. And I remember thinking, like, how on earth are her children sitting so quietly? Like, how is she doing this? Because they were boys. And I didn't say anything. Went to the grocery store, saw her again, and I was like, okay, fine. Of course, I need to say it. She's in front of me. And I went up to her and I was like, I just have to tell you, I am so impressed with how you got your children to sit quietly, respectfully. I mean, it blew my mind, and she just was so taken back, like, wow, I can't believe you noticed that. Like, that's so cool. So I think it's really important to not just look for opportunities to compliment someone superficially, but to say, like, what are the behaviors that they're doing? For example, if you see a guy hold a door open for someone, why not say, like, gosh, that was really cool you held the door for them? Because what's most likely going to happen is they're going to feel that recognition and be like, shoot, that was pretty cool. I should do that again, right? Mm-hmm. So it really just encourages people to be good humans more often. So that's definitely an option too if you feel a little bit uncomfortable about starting it that way.
What about from leadership perspective?
Well, gosh, I mean, if you're going to be out there and demonstrate what you want your people to do, people are going to buy into it 100 times more. If I gave a TED talk on saying it out loud, but didn't have a single story about how I executed it, I have no credibility. Nobody's going to listen to me or think I'm the expert on, speaking to people and, impacting them. But when you're able to go out there and say, hey, as the leader, this is what I've done, you get that credibility, and then people start to buy in and say, hey, wait, I could do that too.
Because it's not that hard.
It's not hard. You think it is.
Okay, so let's go with that. Why do you think it is harder, uncomfortable? Like, why don't people do it?
Well, first of all, we make up reasons why we shouldn't. I mean, when I talk about the girl that I was chasing down in the school parking lot, I'm thinking, she doesn't know me. She's going to think I'm chasing her. She's going to think I'm stalking her. She's going to think I'm weird, right? It's about me. Every single obstacle that popped into my mind was about me. And when you start to remove yourself from it and think about what is the impact that I'm going to give someone else, those obstacles disappear, right? Same thing when you're talking about your audience, right? I want to go talk to someone about an oil, but I'm not, because they're going to think I'm pushy. They're going to think I'm weird. They're going to think I'm trying to sell them on something. Well, when you take away, it's not about you anymore. It's about the impact that you can have on someone by sharing it. Then it's a completely different situation. You're empowered to do that instead of making it like, oh gosh, I'm a super weirdo.
Yeah. I hear that. That's awesome. I totally lost my train of thought now.
No worries.
I had the thought. What should we talk about next?
So, I mean, we're just talking about leadership and obstacles. So, the fact that we make it super difficult for people to want to go ahead and do things because we get in our heads.
I remember what I was going to ask you. Okay, so I'm a leader and I have a team. So saying it out loud to my team, giving them compliments, why is that piece of it also important? Like, how does that transform a team?
Yeah, I mean, I think just as humans, like, we doubt ourselves all the time, even when we do stuff. So Tasha, you talk about imposter syndrome all the time, right? Gosh, we do something amazing, and then our first thought is, oh, but I could never do it again, right? And so immediately we let our self-doubt come in. But when you have other people that are consistently pointing out the things that you do well, it definitely takes your confidence up and gives you the confidence needed to try to do it again. So I think anytime a leader can, give constructive, positive feedback, you're going to motivate your team to do better. And of course, everybody's motivated differently. And that's one of the things that I really have figured out as a coach, is that not everybody's going to be motivated just by having you say something out loud to them. But there are certainly a lot of people, I know I'm one of them, where recognition and someone just taking the time to notice your hard work totally motivates me to do it even more.
Yeah, I love that. The next thing that I just wanted to point out for people, so it's this idea of good humans reach their goals. And I think that sometimes the world tells us that you have to be a good human or successful. So being a good human and successful. So one of the other goals you had was to speak specifically on the topic of
postpartum. Yes. So after having both of my children, I struggled for about 3 years with postpartum OCD. And this is just like the coolest story because it actually happened this morning. As I was, really preparing for my TED Talk and like thinking about the impact people have on me and gosh, what would it look like if I told them about that impact? So I remember sitting in my car one morning and I thought, I haven't talked to the therapist who really got me through a very dark period in like 2 years. So I was like, screw it, I'm going to call her and tell her where I am today and let her know that she saved me, truly. And so I did. I called and left her a message and said, gosh, I don't even know if you remember me, but I just wanted you to know the impact you had on my life. And, I left the message. We never spoke again. And then this morning, which I think it's been about a year, maybe 2 years, gosh, I don't even know when I left that message. She reached out to me this morning and said, hey, there's an opportunity for you to be on a panel where there's a new movie coming out on postpartum depression. And we're going to have a panel of speakers. And I just remember the voicemail that you gave me. And I thought you'd be perfect for it. And so it's like one of those things I had said, I would really like to speak on this topic. It's something I'm, passionate about. And then just like that TED Talk, same thing. A year later, an email shows up in my inbox like, hey, here's an opportunity for you. So I think definitely one of the things is saying out loud, literally, like, what do you actually want to accomplish? And I kind of joke, like, don't tell me what you want to do with your life or any sort of goal because I'm going to push you and call you out on it. So just beware. If you have something you want to do, don't say it to me because that will make you do it.
Or say it to you.
Yeah.
Because then, yeah.
Yeah, I know. But so I'm so excited to actually get the opportunity and, to think about it. Gosh, if I had not called her and said it out loud to her, like, thank you for impacting me the way you did, definitely this opportunity wouldn't be there.
Yeah. And I feel like we listed all those life dreams that you accomplished in the 5 years, but you're just getting started.
That's what's crazy. I mean, Tasha, you and I joke, like, I thought I met you for a certain reason, and then when you look back 5 years later, you're like, oh no, that wasn't it. That was the beginning. And I think, that's kind of where I feel like I am in my life in general. I feel like all these things seemed so crazy and outlandish, and then I did them. And it's really weird. But then you're like, well, shoot, what's next? And it just makes you so excited to be able to do that. And then to really say to other people, like, you can do it too. I know it sounds like nuts, like, because these are pretty big goals that I had. And I don't want it to come off that I'm like a unicorn that just doesn't get fazed by stuff, because Tasha, like, you are one of my best friends. I come crying to you all the time. Like, life is real for me. It's not simple. It's not like I'm just this girl that goes and does these things, right? But to know that you can still do it even with those things is very empowering. And so, what I hope that other people hear from me is that you can do it too. Like, if you want to do something, do it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go for it since we already talked about being awkward. How have you been able to do these things with your anxiety? Can you, are you willing to?
Yeah.
You're going to go on stage and talk about postpartum depression, so might as well talk about anxiety and OCD too while we're here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So it's been something that's part of my life for a really long time. But definitely postpartum, so after having my children, it like skyrocketed and, left me in a pretty rough spot. But one of the coolest things that I've learned to do is to take my anxiety and make it work for me. So what I mean by that is, as soon as I have this like idea or this goal in my mind, like I want to do this, then I start to get anxiety about the obstacles we talked about, right? Like, is this real? Is this realistic? Is it possible? Am I going to look, silly? Like, am I just nuts for thinking I can do these things? The only way for me to reduce the anxiety that I struggle with is to take action. So jumping and being bold and being brave and just being like, shoot, I'm going to jump. Whatever happens, happens. Is okay, because I know that when I start to take action, my anxiety lessens.
So almost taking the anxiety and OCD and viewing it as a strength?
Yes, 100%. Because when I don't, then I wallow about it, and then I feel like, gosh, I just feel like sad for myself. And then that makes anxiety worse. And then I think about the anxiety, and then I have anxiety about thinking about anxiety. And I know it's funny, but
I've been in this conversation with you before. That's why I'm laughing. But having anxiety about anxiety.
Oh, and that's the worst. That is the worst part. It's actually worse than the actual anxiety, if that even makes sense. Probably doesn't, but yeah.
It makes sense to so many people. That's why I know a lot of people struggle with confidence, struggle with anxiety, struggle with all these things, and they think that the successful people don't have them, right? And so, because it's not something that's talked about so much, right? So the leader comes in and they're like, I'm the leader. I'm going to show you the way. And I think there is a place, and it's appropriate and not inappropriate at times to talk about these things and to put our burdens onto the people that are trusting us for guidance. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think a lot of people are like, well, Jenna's done all these things. She must really have her act together. And
they only knew.
Yeah. Well, and I think that probably people say that about me, not so much, right? And the thing about successful people is that we have stuff, right? Like, everybody has their stuff and their baggage and their physical defects. I don't think there is a perfect person that exists, right? Your physical defect is likely like the anxiety and the OCD, right? Mine is whatever, this weird mystery rash, right? I think everybody I speak to all the like super successful clients I have, they all have some physical issue as well, just like anybody else. And so what's the difference between the people that are not doing the stuff because of these limitations and people that are, in your experience?
Yeah, I think it's just the difference between, like, do you let the obstacles and the feeling of overwhelm, take over, or do you use it for good? And I think that's the biggest difference. Like, I have the same amount of overwhelming feelings. I have the same amount of anxiety, maybe even worse, right? Same feelings of like, what if I go do this and they think I'm nuts? What if I share something about myself that repels someone, right? Like, and I know that because I'm a very honest, raw person. I probably overshare a lot. And I'm sure you say yes to that. But, if you don't have an opportunity to impact someone. And so I really, to answer your question, the only difference is I take action, whether it feels good or not. And that's it. We all have it. I just do it anyways.
Yeah, because you were like terrified to move forward with your coaching business.
Absolutely. I am walking away from a full-time job that I'm very comfortable at. I mean, you mentioned I got like the award, the President's Award, right? I'm good at my job. It's stable. I've been there for a long time. I've got 2 children. It's flexible. They are so good to me. So why on earth would I give that up and half of my family's income to do something that's unknown, right? Like all the same concerns, like, will people like me? Am I good enough? Am I gonna, look silly? Whatever. How do I even make this happen, right? The overwhelm of like the gravity of it. But I wouldn't be Jenna if I just didn't say, well, it is what it is. I'm just gonna do it anyways and risk all those things to make it happen. And every single time, it never fails. The reward is always more than the risk. When it comes down to saying it out loud, yeah, I may feel silly, but the reward is the impact I have on that person. And, making their day worth everything to me, right? Worth the embarrassment that could happen. Doing the TED Talk, worst they could do is say, no, sorry, we don't want you to do the TED Talk. With becoming a community college professor, I walked into a dean's office one day, like literally just walked into his office and pretty much forced him to interview me, gave me the job before I walked out the door, which is ridiculous, right? I could have been like, Jenna, that's inappropriate. That's not professional. He's going to kick you out. What are you doing? But I thought to myself, well, this is what my life looks like today. This is where I want it to be. What are the potential obstacles and are they real or not? And who cares about them? Let's just go do it. And the benefit now is I did the TED Talk. I am a community college professor. I am walking away from my full-time job to launch my coaching business. And the benefit is insane. And it's really not only a benefit to me, it's the impact. And I think if you can look at it as like, what are the things that you're doing? Like, what is the amount of impact you're going to have on other people rather than focusing on the impact for yourself? If you are driving based on that, everything is worth it.
Awesome. So what advice, as we wrap up here, what advice would you have for our audience, like final thoughts?
Final thoughts. If there's something that you want to do and you're able to, again, kind of look at that formula that I've used, where are you? Where do you want to be? What do you need to do it? Do it, and then reassess. Every time you get to the reassess, you're going to be like, damn, totally worth it. Totally worth overcoming the obstacles, the fear, the overwhelm, everything, because the impact that you have on yourself, your family, your friends, your coworkers, the community is so, so worth it. And I know it sounds simple when it's not, but it is, if that makes sense. Like if you do the same thing over and over, follow the same kind of process, you can do it.
Yeah, I love that. And so if people wanted to reach out to you and have a conversation with you about their goals and how this process would apply to them, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me. My email is drivecoach.us@gmail.com. The name of my coaching practice is Drive Performance Coaching. And I'm happy to set up just a free, Drive Your Business coaching call where we really talk about, what are the very specific things that you're trying to accomplish, whether it's taking your business to the next level or, specific milestones along the way, to really see if we're able to work together to come up with a very specific plan to get you there.
Cool. And I just want to note to the audience that I think Jenna's the first person that's been on the podcast in over 200 episodes that I have said, yeah, that's cool if you do that. And it's because I think you're awesome. And I think that Emerge would likely not exist without your influence. In fact, Jenna's husband even made our beloved Emerge Man.
Yes, that's right.
So I want to say thank you for finally coming on the podcast. I think that what you had to say about success and the TED Talk is like, and just to say it out loud and how we can really impact and change the world through that is super valuable. And I hope it was valuable for everybody else. So
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
yeah, you're welcome. Thanks everyone for listening, and have a great day, Jenna.
Thank you.